Part 1, the spaceship called Horizon's Edge moved slowly through space toward a green and blue planet. Commander Jake Collins stood near the large window on the ship's bridge. He watched the planet turn below them. This was Kethera Prime, home to the Ketheri people. It had taken 6 months to get here from Earth. Jake felt nervous but excited. This was the first time humans would meet the Kethari face to face. The Ketheri had answered Earth's messages with interest, but everyone knew they were very different from humans. The report said they were big, strong, and dangerous. They were hunters, predators at the top of their world's food chain. Lieutenant Commander Amy Peterson stood next to Jake. She was the ship's expert on alien life. She had been studying everything they knew about the Kethari for months. "Remember what we learned," she said quietly. "They respect strength. They show dominance through body language. Don't look weak, but don't challenge them either." Jake nodded. He had read all the reports. The Kethari were nearly 8 feet tall. They had dark fur covering powerful muscles. Their faces were long with strong jaws full of sharp teeth. They had claws on their hands that could slice through metal. They ate meat hunted in packs, and their whole society was built on being strong and dangerous. "I understand," Jake said. He checked his uniform one more time. "Let's hope talking works better than fighting." The small shuttle left the Horizon's Edge and flew down through Kethara's sky. It landed on a flat area outside the capital city called Vorath. 7 tall Kethari stood waiting for them. They stood in a line watching the shuttle with bright yellow eyes. Jake walked out first. His team followed behind him. He kept his back straight and walked with confidence even though his heart was beating fast. The leader of the Kethari stepped forward. His name translated to something like Darkfang in English. Jake walked toward him without hesitation. Darkfang was huge, maybe 8.5 feet tall. His fur was almost black. His eyes were the color of amber, and they stared at Jake like a cat watching a mouse. His nose moved as he smelled the air around the humans. His pointed ears turned toward them, listening to every sound. "Commander Collins," Darkfang said. A small device in his ear translated his words into English. His voice was deep and rough. "Welcome to Kethara. You are smaller than I thought you would be." Jake smiled a little. "Many aliens say that. We have learned that being big is not everything." Darkfang's mouth opened, showing many sharp white teeth. For a second, Jake thought it was a threat. Then he realized the Ketheri was smiling. "True words," Darkfang said. "Come with us. We have made rooms for you to stay. Tomorrow we will talk about working together." The humans followed the Kethari into the city. Vorath was beautiful in a wild way. The buildings were tall and wide, made for creatures much bigger than humans. The streets were broad. Ketheri people stopped what they were doing to watch the humans walk past. They stared with those hunting eyes, but they seemed more curious than angry. Amy walked close to Jake. She had small devices scanning everything around them. "Their muscles are incredibly dense," she whispered so only Jake could hear. "My readings show they are at least 4 times stronger than humans." "Good thing we're here to talk, not wrestle," Jake whispered back. The rooms the Ketheri gave them were large and comfortable. They had been built smaller to fit humans better. That evening, Jake stood by a window looking out at the alien city. The sun was setting, turning the sky purple and orange. Somewhere out there, 2 very different species were trying to understand each other. Humans were built for running long distances and working together. The Kethari were built for hunting and killing. They were opposites in many ways. Jake hoped they could be friends anyway. The galaxy was a big place. Having friends was better than having enemies. The next morning, Jake woke up early. He ate breakfast with his team and they prepared for the first meeting. Everyone was professional, but Jake could see they were nervous. Meeting a species of giant predators was not easy, no matter how much training you had. The meeting room was large with a high ceiling. The table was built for Kethari size, which meant the humans had to sit in specially made chairs that lifted them higher. It would have been funny if it wasn't so serious. Darkfang arrived with several other Kethari. They were all important leaders, Jake had been told. There was a female named Silverstripe who was a scientist. There was an old Kethari called Longfang who was an advisor. There were military leaders and diplomats. The talking began. They discussed trade between their worlds. They talked about sharing knowledge and technology. They discussed protecting each other if enemies attacked. The Kethari asked many questions about human medicine and farming. Humans asked about Kethari engineering and physics. It went well. Better than Jake had hoped. The Kethari were smart and thoughtful. They listened carefully and asked good questions. Yes, they were intimidating with their size and teeth and claws, but they were not mindless beasts. They were people, just different people. After several hours, they took a break. Jake stood and stretched. His back hurt from sitting in the tall chair. Darkfang approached him, moving with the smooth grace of a hunting cat. "You do well, Commander," Darkfang said. "You do not show fear. Many species shake when they meet us for the first time." "I would be lying if I said I was not nervous," Jake admitted. "But fear does not help anyone. We came here to build a friendship. That requires trust." Darkfang's ears moved forward, a sign of interest that Jake had learned. "Trust must be earned," the big alien said. "But I think you understand this. Your species may be small, but you are not stupid." "Thank you," Jake said. "I think your species is not just strong, but also wise. That is a good combination." Darkfang made a sound like a rumbling purr. "Perhaps we will work well together after all." "Come, let us eat." "You must try our food even if your stomach cannot handle raw meat." Jake laughed. "We brought our own food, but I appreciate the offer." Over the next 2 weeks, the meetings continued. Jake and his team learned more about Cathari culture every day. They visited factories and schools. They met regular Cathari people, not just leaders. They saw how the Cathari lived their lives. The Cathari seemed just as interested in learning about humans. They asked endless questions about Earth and human history. They were fascinated by how humans had spread across their whole planet. Despite having no claws or fangs or natural armor, they were amazed that humans could eat both plants and meat. They found human art and music strange but interesting. Slowly, carefully, understanding grew between the two species. Jake began to hope that this mission would succeed, that humans and Cathari could become real allies, maybe even friends. He had no idea that everything was about to change because of one curious child and one playful bite. Part 2. The third week on Cathera brought a surprise. Jake and his team were in the meeting room reviewing trade agreements when Darkfang made an unusual announcement. The big Cathari leader stood up from his chair and looked at Jake with those amber eyes. "Commander Collins," Darkfang said in his deep voice, "you have been patient with us. You have answered our questions honestly. You have shown respect for our ways. I wish to invite you to my home. I want you to meet my family. For Cathari, this means we trust you." Jake looked at Amy, who sat beside him. She gave a small nod. This was important in Cathari culture. Being invited to someone's home, especially a leader's home, was a great honor. It meant they were making real progress. "We would be very honored," Jake said. "Thank you for the invitation." Darkfang's home was in a part of the city that mixed nature with buildings. Large trees grew between structures. Water ran through channels, making peaceful sounds. The house itself was big and open, built the way Cathari liked their spaces. Everything was larger than human size, but beautiful in its design. When they entered, a female Cathari came to greet them. She was a bit smaller than Darkfang, but still impressive. Her fur was a lighter gray color that caught the light. "This is Silverstripe," Darkfang said. "She is my mate, and these are our children." 3 young Cathari came into the room. 2 of them were teenagers, almost as tall as their parents, but thinner. They moved with the awkward energy of young people everywhere. The third was much younger, maybe equivalent to a 7 or 8-year-old human child. This one had paws that seemed too big for its body and ears that stuck up comically. Despite the predatory features, there was something almost cute about it. "This is Swiftclaw," Darkfang said, gesturing to the youngest. "He is our late blessing, our surprise child. He is curious about everything and everyone." Swiftclaw stared at the humans with huge amber eyes. His ears pointed straight up toward the ceiling. His small tail moved back and forth quickly, showing his excitement. "Are these really the humans?" he asked in his own language. Jake's translator turned the words into high-pitched, fast English. "Yes," Silverstripe answered her son. "But remember what we taught you. Be polite." The evening was fascinating for Jake. He and Amy sat with the family, learning about daily Cathari life. They shared a meal, though the humans politely ate food they had brought rather than the raw meat the Cathari family enjoyed. The conversation touched on many topics. They talked about raising children, about beliefs and philosophy, about art and music. Swiftclaw kept moving closer to Jake. The young Cathari was clearly very curious, but trying to be good and not bother the guests. Finally, Darkfang noticed his son edging nearer and gave him a stern look. "Swiftclaw, do not bother Commander Collins." "But father," the cub said, his voice eager. I have never seen a human so close. They smell different. Strange but not bad. Jake smiled at the young Cathari. It is fine. I understand being curious. I was very curious about your people, too. What would you like to know? Swiftclaw's eyes got even wider. He seemed amazed that the human was talking directly to him. Is it true that humans have no claws? No fangs for hunting? How do you catch food? We hunt very differently from you, Jake explained. He spoke slowly so the cub could understand. We use tools that we make, weapons and traps, and we work together in groups. Also, we are very good at running for a long time without getting tired. Swiftclaw tilted his head to one side, looking confused. Running for a long time? You mean running away from danger? No, Amy said, helping to explain. Running after the prey. Humans are persistence hunters. We chase animals until they are too tired to run anymore. Then we catch them. The young Cathari's tail swished back and forth as he thought about this. That sounds like it takes a very long time. We jump on prey and catch it quickly. Darkfang made a sound that was like laughter, a deep rumbling in his chest. Different does not mean wrong, my son. Every species hunts in its own way. Each way works for that species. The two older children asked questions too. They wanted to know about human technology and human cities. They asked about Earth's animals and plants. They were amazed to learn that humans had no natural weapons, but had still become the dominant species on their planet. As the evening went on, Jake felt good about the visit. This kind of personal connection was exactly what they needed. It was one thing to negotiate treaties in a meeting room. It was another thing to sit in someone's home, meet their family, and share a meal. This built real understanding between species. Silverstripe asked Amy about human medicine. She was fascinated to learn that humans could survive injuries that would kill most species. Amy explained about human immune systems and healing abilities. She talked about how human bones could break and then grow back together, often stronger than before. Remarkable, Silverstripe said. You seem so fragile, but you are built to recover from damage. This is unusual. Humans are full of surprises, Amy said with a smile. Swiftclaw had been listening to all of this. His young mind was working hard to understand these strange aliens. So humans are soft but also strong? He asked. In a way, yes, Jake said. We are not as strong as Cathari, but we are tough in different ways. We heal well. We can survive in many different environments. We do not give up easily. Persistent, Darkfang said, using an English word. This is a good word for humans, I think. As the evening came to an end, Jake and Amy prepared to leave. They thanked Darkfang and Silverstripe for the invitation and the wonderful evening. Swiftclaw watched them with his tail still moving, clearly wanting to ask more questions but holding back. Come back soon, the young cub said. I want to learn more about humans. We will, Jake promised. Walking back to their quarters, Amy was quiet for a while. Then she said, That went better than I hoped. Meeting the family really changes how we see them. They are not just big scary predators. They are people with families and hopes and curiosity. Exactly, Jake agreed. And they are seeing us as more than just small, weak aliens. We are building real respect here. Neither of them knew that the real test was coming soon. That a moment of innocent curiosity would reveal something about humans that would shock the Kethari and change everything about how the two species saw each other. The next day was free from formal meetings. Darkfang had suggested that Jake and Amy might enjoy visiting a Cathari school. It would give them a chance to see how young Cathari learned and played. It would also let the children meet real aliens, which would be educational for everyone. Jake agreed immediately. He thought it was a wonderful idea. Amy was excited too from a scientific perspective. She wanted to observe young Cathari behavior and development. They had no idea what was about to happen there. No idea that a simple playful act would demonstrate something about human evolution that would stun the entire Cathari people. The invitation to the school seemed like just another pleasant cultural exchange. It would turn out to be much more than that. Part 3. The Cathari school was not like human schools. It was a mix of classrooms and large outdoor spaces. Young Cathari learned regular subjects like math and science inside. Outside, they practiced hunting skills and physical training. It made sense for a predator species. They needed both intelligence and physical ability. Jake and Amy arrived in the afternoon. The head teacher, a mature female Cathari named Bright Eyes, greeted them warmly. Welcome, she said. The cubs are very excited to meet real humans. Some of them have been asking questions all morning. "We are happy to be here," Jake said. "We want to learn about your teaching methods." Bright Eyes led them through the facility. In one classroom, young Kethari were learning about mathematics. In another, they studied the history of their world. The cubs were attentive and smart. They asked their teachers good questions. Jake was impressed by how similar education was across species. Everyone needed to teach their young. Outside, the physical training area was fascinating. Young Kethari practiced stalking techniques on holographic prey animals. The holograms moved and reacted like real animals. The cubs had to work together to catch them. It taught them cooperation and hunting skills at the same time. Jake noticed Swiftclaw among the students. Darkfang's youngest son was practicing hard, his small body moving with surprising grace. When he spotted Jake, his face lit up with joy. He bounded over as soon as the exercise ended, panting slightly from exertion. "Commander Collins," Swiftclaw said, remembering to be formal. "Did you watch me? I caught the holographic prey 3 times today." "I saw," Jake said with a genuine smile. "You move very fast and very quietly. You are doing well." Swiftclaw sat down near where Jake and Amy were sitting on a bench. The bench was made for adult Kethari, so it was very tall. Jake and Amy's feet did not touch the ground. Swiftclaw seemed to find this amusing but polite enough not to mention it. Other young Kethari were playing nearby. They wrestled and tumbled with each other, making sounds that were probably laughter. It looked rough and violent to human eyes, but Jake understood it was normal play for young predators. They were learning their strength and building bonds with their peers. Swiftclaw watched his friends play, then looked back at Jake. "Do human children play fight like that?" he asked. "Sometimes," Jake answered, "but probably not as rough as you do. Human children are more fragile than Kethari children. Father told me we must be very careful with other species," Swiftclaw said thoughtfully. His tail moved slowly, a sign he was thinking hard. He said, "Not everyone is as strong as Kethari. We must be gentle." "Your father is very wise," Jake said. Swiftclaw's amber eyes studied Jake carefully. "But you do not seem as fragile as the Ventari or the Quillians. Those species are very delicate. You seem more solid, stronger." Jake was interested by this observation. The young Kethari had good instincts. "Humans are tougher than we might look," he admitted. "But we are still not as strong as Kethari." The cub moved a bit closer. His natural curiosity was winning over his training to be polite and keep distance. "Can I see your hand?" he asked. "I want to understand better." Jake held out his hand without any hesitation. He was not afraid. Swiftclaw leaned forward and sniffed carefully. His wet nose touched Jake's skin briefly. Then he gently touched Jake's hand with one finger pad, being very careful to keep his claw pulled back. "No fur," Swiftclaw observed, "and the skin feels soft. Not like ours." "Yes, human skin is softer than Kethari fur and hide," Jake agreed. Swiftclaw examined the hand like a scientist studying something fascinating. "But Father said humans are tough, that you come from a hard world, that you survived many dangers." "We are tough," Amy added to the conversation, "just in ways that are different from Kethari toughness." The young Kethari looked between them, his young mind trying to understand this puzzle. How could something be soft and tough at the same time? How could humans be weak and strong? It did not make sense to him. Then, in a movement that was completely natural to him, Swiftclaw made a playful gesture. Among young Kethari, a gentle bite was a sign of affection and curiosity. It was how they tested things and showed friendly interest. To Swiftclaw, it seemed like the logical next step in understanding this strange human. He play-snapped at Jake's extended hand. His jaws closed around Jake's wrist. He used what he thought was very gentle pressure, the same softness he would use with a small littermate or a favorite toy. Amy gasped in shock. Several adult Kethari teachers started moving quickly toward them, alarm clear in their body language. Jake stayed completely still. He did not pull away. He did not cry out. Swiftclaw's jaws were closed around Jake's wrist. His sharp teeth pressed against the skin. For a young Kethari, this was gentle. For almost any other known species in the galaxy, this bite would have crushed bone and torn flesh like paper. The pressure was enormous, more than 200 pounds per square inch. But Jake's skin did not break. It did not tear. It did not even bleed. There were indentations from the teeth, pressure marks that would fade in a few minutes. But there was no real damage. Swiftclaw's eyes went very wide. He opened his jaws immediately and sat back on his haunches. He stared at Jake's wrist in complete confusion and amazement. Your skin, he stammered. It did not break. How is this possible? Jake flexed his wrist, moving it around to show it was completely fine. There were marks but no injury. I told you, he said calmly. Humans are tough in our own way. Darkfang arrived, having been called by one of the panicked teachers. Swiftclaw, he barked in a sharp voice. What have you done? Did you hurt the human? Father, no, Swiftclaw said, wonder filling his voice. That is what is strange. I bit him. I was gentle, but I bit him like I would bite Redfur or Nightpaw when we play. His skin should have broken, but it did not. Look, Darkfang stared at Jake's wrist. He could see the indentation marks from his son's teeth, but there was no blood, no tearing, no injury. His own eyes widened with surprise. Commander Collins, he said slowly, my son could have seriously injured you. You must understand the pressure of even a young Cathari's bite. Why are you not hurt? No harm done, Jake said. He seemed remarkably calm for someone who had just been bitten by an alien predator. Swiftclaw was being playful. I could tell. And I knew I would be all right. Amy had recovered from her initial shock. She pulled out her medical scanner and ran it over Jake's wrist. She looked at the readings and her eyebrows went up. This is remarkable, she said quietly. The scanner recorded the pressure. It was nearly 220 pounds per square inch. That should have caused severe tissue damage, possibly broken bones. Human skin is very tough, Jake explained. He was now talking to the crowd of young and adult Cathari that had gathered around. We evolved on Earth, a world that was very dangerous. There were plants with thorns that could cut you, rocks that were sharp, animals with claws and teeth, extreme heat and extreme cold. Over millions of years, human skin adapted. It became much tougher than it looks. Bright Eyes, the head teacher, came closer. But you have no scales like the Draken, no thick hide like the Urzon. Your skin looks thin and vulnerable. It looks that way, Amy said. But human skin has many layers. It is very flexible but also very strong. The fibers in our skin can resist cutting and tearing much better than most species realize. Swiftclaw was still staring at his own jaws, then back at Jake's wrist. He seemed to be having trouble believing what had happened. You let me bite you, he said slowly. You did not pull away. You were not afraid. I could tell you were being playful and friendly, Jake said gently. I trusted that you were trying to be gentle. And I knew my skin was tough enough to handle it. The young Cathari's tail began to wag, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Humans are very strange, he announced to everyone. They look soft, but they are not soft. They look weak, but they are not weak. That is actually a very good way to describe us, Jake said with a laugh. We are full of surprises. The crowd of Cathari continued to stare. This changed everything they thought they knew about humans. Part 4, the news spread across the Cathari capital like wildfire. By that evening, everyone in Vorath was talking about what happened at the school. The small human had been bitten by a Cathari cub and walked away without injury. It seemed impossible, but there were witnesses. There were medical scans. It was true. What should have been an embarrassing diplomatic incident turned into something else entirely. The Cathari were fascinated. The species they thought was small and weak had hidden strength. They wanted to understand how this was possible. Darkfang invited Jake and his entire team to a formal gathering that night. The Great Hall was filled with Cathari officials, scientists, and military leaders. Everyone who was important wanted to be there. They all wanted to hear the explanation. Jake stood before the assembled crowd. Amy stood beside him with her scientific equipment ready. They had prepared for this moment. They knew the incident would require a bigger discussion about human biology and evolution. Commander Collins, said Longfang, the elderly Cathari scientist. His fur was gray with age and his eyes held great wisdom. We have reviewed the medical data from this afternoon. The pressure that young Swiftclaw applied should have caused terrible injury to any species your size. Yet you have no significant damage. We need to understand why. Jake took a breath and began his explanation. Humans come from a planet called Earth. Our world shaped us in ways that are not obvious at first look. We do not have claws. We do not have fangs or venom or armor, but we developed other advantages instead. Amy activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, floating in the air. Then diagrams of human anatomy. Human skin has several layers, she explained in a clear voice. The outer layer regenerates constantly. Below that is a thick layer full of collagen fibers. These fibers are very strong and flexible. Human skin can withstand significant pressure and damage. But this is not your only adaptation, Longfang observed. He was looking at additional data on a screen. We have studied the biological information you sent us. Your bone density is high. Your muscle attachments are reinforced. Your healing abilities are impressive. You are built to take damage and recover. Yes, Jake agreed. Humans are endurance specialists. We evolved to run very long distances, to survive in many different climates and environments, to heal from injuries that would kill many other species. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest, but we are incredibly persistent and durable. A military commander named Ironhide leaned forward. He was a scarred veteran with fur that had seen many battles. You were prey that became predator, he said in a growling voice. Like us, but backwards, we are ambush hunters who grew smart. You are endurance hunters who made tools. That is one way to look at it, Jake said. We prefer to think we are neither pure prey nor pure predator. We are adaptable. We survive by being flexible and tough. The discussion continued for several hours. The Cathari asked detailed questions about every aspect of human biology. They learned about how humans could control their body temperature through sweating, how humans could eat almost anything, both plants and meat, how human brains were built for complex problem-solving and long-term planning, how humans formed large cooperative groups that could work together on massive projects. Swiftclaw sat quietly with his family, listening to everything. He had been allowed to attend because he was at the center of the discovery. When there was a pause in the technical talk, he raised one small paw. Yes, young one, Longfang said kindly. If humans are so tough and strong, Swiftclaw asked, why do they seem so soft and gentle? Why are they nice? The entire hall became quiet. It was a child's question, simple and direct. But it touched on something deeper that the adults had not fully considered. Jake knelt down to be closer to Swiftclaw's eye level. Because being tough does not mean you have to act tough all the time, he said. Humans learned that being kind, working together, and being gentle when we can, these things make us stronger as a group. We save our toughness for when we really need it. Swiftclaw's ears perked up with interest. So you choose to be gentle? You could be rough, but you decide not to? Exactly right, Jake said. Just like you were trying to be gentle with me. The difference is, you are still learning how much strength to use. Humans have had thousands of generations to learn how to control our strength around others. We know when to be tough and when to be soft. Darkfang placed his large paw on his son's shoulder with pride. There is wisdom in this, he said to everyone in the hall. The humans teach us that real strength includes knowing when not to use it. Restraint is its own form of power. Amy added more information. Humans have survived ice ages, droughts, floods, diseases, and predators. Earth tested us constantly. Those who survived were the ones who were tough enough to endure, but also smart enough to work together. We are social creatures. Cooperation is as important to us as toughness. Ironhide, the military commander, spoke again. I have fought many battles. I have seen warriors who were strong but foolish. They did not last long. The best warriors are those who are strong but also wise, who know when to fight and when to talk. Perhaps humans understand this better than we thought. Silverstripe, Darkfang's mate, asked questions about human medicine. She was amazed to learn how human bones could break and heal back stronger, how human immune systems could learn to fight diseases and remember them for years, how humans could survive losing significant amounts of blood or even entire organs in some cases. Your bodies are built for damage and recovery, she said with wonder in her voice. You expect to be hurt and you're prepared for it. Earth was not a kind planet, Jake said honestly. It forced us to be ready for anything. The humans you see today are descended from the ones who could take the worst Earth had to offer and keep going. As the gathering ended, Jake noticed a change in how the Cathari looked at his delegation. Before today, there had been curiosity mixed with a subtle condescension. The Cathari had seen humans as potentially weak partners who would need protection. Now they understood. Humans were survivors. They were built to endure in ways the Cathari had never imagined. The next morning, Jake was reviewing treaty documents when Darkfang arrived with news. The council met late into the night, the Cathari leader said. The incident with my son has changed many minds. Before, some council members worried that humans were too fragile for a real alliance. They thought you would be a burden. Now they see you differently. How do they see us now? Jake asked. As equals, Darkfang said simply. Different from us, but equal in value. Your durability, your persistence, your ability to endure. These are strengths we respect. Combined with your technology and your skill at cooperation, you are far more valuable than we first believed. Jake felt relief wash over him. I am glad. We see the Cathari the same way. You have strengths we do not have. Together we can be much more than we are separately. The Council wants to accelerate the treaty process, Darkfang continued. They are ready to sign a full alliance. Trade, defense, scientific cooperation, cultural exchange. Everything we have discussed. That is wonderful news, Jake said with a smile. Darkfang's expression became more serious. I must thank you, Commander Collins. You could have been angry about what my son did. You could have used it to make us look bad. Instead, you turned it into a teaching moment. You showed us something about humanity that words alone could never have conveyed. Your son meant no harm, Jake said. He was just curious. And honestly, it worked out well. Sometimes the best lessons come from unexpected moments. Later that day, Swiftclaw came to visit Jake. The young Cathari seemed more thoughtful than before. Jake, he said, using the familiar name that Jake had given him permission to use. I have been thinking about what happened. I am sorry I bit you. You do not need to apologize, Jake said warmly. You did not hurt me, and you taught everyone something important. I wanted to understand humans, Swiftclaw said. I thought biting gently would help me learn about your skin. I did learn, but not what I expected. What did you learn? Jake asked. Swiftclaw thought for a moment. That things are not always what they seem. That soft-looking can be strong. That small-looking can be tough. That being different does not mean being less. Jake smiled. Those are very wise thoughts. You have learned more than just facts about human biology. You have learned about respecting differences. The young Cathari's tail wagged. When I grow up, I want to visit Earth. I want to see the world that made humans so strong by testing them so much. You will always be welcome, Jake promised. And maybe I will show you some of Earth's other tough creatures. We are not the only survivors on our planet. I would like that very much, Swiftclaw said. Part 5 the signing ceremony took place in the Grand Plaza of Vorath 2 weeks later. Thousands of Cathari gathered to watch history being made. Cameras broadcast the event to billions more across both worlds. The sky was clear and blue, and banners from both Earth and Cathara hung side by side in the gentle breeze. Jake stood representing humanity. The elected leaders of Earth participated through holographic projections, their images floating in the air beside him. Darkfang and the entire Cathari Council stood opposite, their imposing forms somehow less frightening, now that understanding had been built between the species. The treaty was comprehensive and detailed. It covered mutual defense agreements, meaning both species would protect each other if attacked. It included trade agreements that would benefit both economies. Scientific cooperation would allow researchers from both worlds to work together on projects. Cultural exchange programs would let students and teachers visit each other's planets. Most importantly, there were military training agreements. Human and Cathari forces would train together, learning each other's tactics and strategies. The Cathari would teach humans about their advanced engineering and combat techniques. Humans would teach the Cathari about endurance tactics, logistics, and cooperative battle strategies. As Jake placed humanity's seal on the digital document, he thought about how strange the path to this moment had been: a simple diplomatic mission, a curious child, a playful bite. These small things had revealed a truth about humanity that opened Cathari eyes to what humans really were. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Music played, combining styles from both worlds into something new and interesting. Food was shared, with each species enjoying what their biology allowed. Cathari and humans mingled, talking and learning from each other. Swiftclaw found Jake in the crowd. The young Cathari had grown even in the short time since their first meeting. He was getting taller and his movements were becoming more coordinated. Jake, he said happily, this is because of what happened, is it not? Because I bit you? Jake smiled at the cub's directness. In a way, yes. You helped everyone see past appearances. Sometimes it takes a simple action to reveal a complex truth. I am glad I did not hurt you, Swiftclaw said seriously. But I am also glad it happened. Now our people are friends. So am I, Jake agreed. You should be proud. Not many people can say they changed history by being curious. Darkfang and Silverstripe approached with Amy. The adults had been deep in conversation about future projects. Commander Collins, Darkfang said formally, though there was warmth in his voice. I have been discussing with Lieutenant Commander Peterson about educational exchanges. We would like to send some of our young people to Earth, and we would welcome human students here. That is an excellent idea, Jake said enthusiastically. Young people learning about each other will build friendships that last generations. Silverstripe added, I am particularly interested in human medical training. Your techniques for treating trauma and injury are remarkable. Our doctors could learn much from yours. And our engineers are eager to learn from Cathari quantum mechanics and construction methods, Amy said. The exchange of knowledge will benefit everyone. As the day wore on, Jake watched Cathari and humans interacting. He saw Cathari children carefully examining human hands, fascinated by the lack of claws. He saw human scientists excitedly discussing engineering concepts with Cathari experts. He saw military officers from both species comparing notes on tactics and strategy. This was what peace looked like. Not just treaties and documents, but people genuinely interested in each other, people learning and sharing and building something together. Later that evening, as the celebrations wound down, Jake stood with his core team. Amy was there, along with the other officers and specialists who had made the mission successful. They looked out over the plaza, watching the last of the Cathari families heading home. We did it, Amy said quietly. A real alliance. Not just words on paper, but genuine mutual respect. It almost did not work, one of the other officers said. We could have been seen as too weak, too different. That is what makes what happened so important, Jake replied. We were not trying to hide our differences. We were not trying to pretend to be something we are not. We showed them exactly what humanity is, and they respected it. Amy nodded. Swiftclaw's bite revealed what words could not convey. That humans are tough. That we are built to take damage and keep going. That our gentleness is a choice, not a weakness. I wonder what other species will think, another team member said. When word spreads that humans can withstand a Cathari bite. Let them wonder, Jake said with a slight smile. Every species in the galaxy knows the Cathari are powerful predators. Now they will know that humans earned the friendship and respect of those predators. That says something. The Horizon's Edge prepared to depart 3 days later. The mission had been scheduled for 3 months, and that time was up. Jake and his team needed to return to Earth to report their success and begin implementing the treaty. Darkfang came to see them off personally. He brought his family, including Swiftclaw, who seemed sad that his new friends were leaving. You will return, yes? The young Cathari asked hopefully. I will, Jake promised. And next time, maybe I will bring my family to meet yours. I have a nephew about your age who would love to meet a real Cathari. Swiftclaw's tail wagged with excitement. I will show him how to hunt holographic prey, and I will be very careful not to bite him. Everyone laughed at that. The joke would probably never get old between their peoples. The story of the human who was bitten and did not break would be told for generations. Darkfang clasped Jake's shoulder with his large paw, careful to control his strength. You have given my people something valuable, Commander Collins. Not just technology or trade. You have given us a new perspective. We thought we understood strength. You showed us there are many kinds of strength. And you showed us that even the most fearsome predators can be thoughtful, wise allies, Jake replied. We are both better for knowing each other. As the shuttle lifted off from Kethera's surface, Jake looked back at the planet below. Amy sat beside him, reviewing all the data they had collected. The rest of the team was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had accomplished. You know what is interesting? Amy said after a while. We came here expecting to prove ourselves through our technology. Our ships, our computers, our weapons. Instead, we proved ourselves through something much more basic. Our biology, Jake said. More than that, our durability. The fact that Earth made us tough enough to survive its challenges. Sometimes the simplest things matter most. The Horizon's Edge reached orbit and turned toward home. Earth was 6 months away. When they arrived, they would have an incredible story to tell. About first contact, about cultural exchange, about a curious cub whose playful bite revealed a truth that changed everything. Back on Cathara, Swiftclaw stood with his family watching the human ship disappear into the sky. Father, he said thoughtfully, do you think other species are like humans? Stronger than they look? Perhaps, Darkfang replied. That is a good lesson to learn. Never judge only by appearance. Understand before making assumptions. I will remember, Swiftclaw promised. When I am grown, I want to be an ambassador like Commander Collins. I want to meet other species and learn about them. Silverstripe nuzzled her son affectionately. That is a worthy goal. You have already begun your training by teaching us all something important. As the days passed, the Human-Ketheri alliance began to take real shape. Ships started traveling between the worlds, scientists collaborated on research projects, students prepared for exchange programs, military units began joint training exercises. The story of how it all began spread far and wide. Other species heard about the humans who could withstand a Ketheri bite. They heard about the diplomatic mission that succeeded not through displays of weapons, but through a simple demonstration of biological toughness. Some species became more interested in meeting humans. If they could earn Ketheri respect, they must be worth knowing. Others became more cautious. If humans were that durable, what else were they capable of? But for Jake and his team, for Darkfang and his family, for all those who had been part of that first meeting, it was simpler than all that. They had built a friendship between two very different peoples. They had shown that understanding could bridge even the widest gaps. Years later, Jake would return to Kethera many times. He would watch Swiftclaw grow into a respected diplomat himself. He would see human and Kethari children playing together, learning from each other. He would witness the alliance grow stronger with each passing year. And sometimes, when telling the story to new diplomats or students, he would roll up his sleeve and show them his wrist. There was a faint scar there now, barely visible, a reminder of the day a curious cub tried to bite him playfully and learned that human skin would not break. It was a small mark, but it represented something much larger, the moment when two species truly saw each other. The moment when humanity showed the galaxy that they were not fragile despite their appearance. The moment when strength revealed itself in an unexpected form.